Hi there, welcome to Relax and Reflect Time, my 10-minute short audio episodes made to encourage and help remind you to take time out of your day to slow down. So I was reflecting on what I wanted to talk about today, and wanted to be brutally honest with you that, because I think a lot of you might be going through the same, that it's been a really tough year so far, 2021, that there has been so much processing and looking at what's real, the changes in the world. My family have been going through massive changes, internal healing, doing an awful lot of work, and it just doesn't seem to have stopped. The intensity of it has been unreal, unlike anything I've ever experienced before. And we're just about holding steady. The term dog-tired springs to mind, and it reminds me of when I went through a period of time of feeling quite similar. I think it was about a year and a half ago, when we did a massive build and renovation project, that I was so tired of having builders in Monday to Friday, starting at 7:30, finishing at 4 every day, and all the way through the summer holidays, which is normally a time where we take it a bit easier, that my usual springing out of bed at 6:30, 7 in the morning just stopped happening. We're all dragging ourselves out of bed in the morning, and just struggling to do the basics of washing, eating, being where we need to be. But what's been really lovely is the way we've supported each other as a family, and the thing that's allowed me the level of stability that has served me so well is the last 8 years of delving into how it is that we create our felt experience. And although that doesn't present the healing, what it does do is it helps you navigate the roller coaster of the emotions, of the highs and the lows. And more importantly, what it's allowed to happen is that even when things seem really tough and you're really tired and sometimes feeling a bit overwhelmed, that there's still always space for humor. Like every day there's still space for humor, and none of us push through, none of us keep going, none of us have this habit that I used to once have of just keeping going. And so although I haven't been triggering that adrenal fight or flight response, I'm back in a keep on keeping on mode. And so it has been enormously tiring, but at the same time, it's been a really loving bonding experience with my kids. And so I often reflect on my experience with my first client, with whom I worked with, looking at how their psychological state was impeding their health and contributing to stress and anxiety. Because I used to work as a naturopathic nutritionist, and was always interested in the mind-body connection, and then it just didn't make sense to me to be doing the nutrition anymore, because there's something more profound, much deeper to be focusing on how experience is created, that's created healing unlike anything I've seen before, in terms of regulating that adrenal response and the way that we can overly stress the body. So with this particular client, she came to me for naturopathic nutrition support for repeated UTIs and kidney issues, and with my traditional Chinese medicine hat on, it's very much linked to water imbalance, to stress response, to anxiety. And so when I started to see something much deeper than treating with a naturopathic approach, I was starting to see something new about how she was innocently creating her stressful experience, her anxiety, and to get her to have a new perspective on it. So it was the first week of December, and she was describing how busy and stressed she was. And so we examined her to-do list and started to see it was very self-imposed. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, we can all make up a to-do list, but how many of the things on the list are really in need of being done urgently? Like, what's the reason for the to-do list? Like, I used to, and it's not that to-do lists are right or wrong, but I used to do them to feel something at the end of completing them, to give myself some kind of feeling of self-worth or reward. These days I still make lists, nowhere near as much as I used to, but that's because my memory is not so great as I get older, and I found the more that I live in the present, the more forgetful I've become. So from that respect, lists are really great that you can tick off. But when we come up with a to-do list, we can have a thought that they're really important, and the things on the list are really important. But does that really make it true? Because if you've experienced it anything like me, there have been times where I've made a to-do list, for example, before going on a holiday or before hosting a party, and everything on the list feels like it needs to be done. And then invariably a few things don't get done. And as the party starts or we leave on holiday, I look at the end of the list and go, nah, that wasn't really, obviously wasn't that important anyway. So it's really interesting to notice that. And back when I was in my old habit, a real signal as to how we're using, if we're using that to-do list as a prop, is one of the habits I used to have is at the end of the day, if I felt like I'd been hugely busy but hadn't actually achieved anything, I noticed it was actually because I'd been hugely busy in my head. And so then what I would do is I would add things to the bottom of my to-do list that I had actually done that day that weren't originally on my list, and then cross them out to make me feel better, which kind of tells you I was obviously in completely the wrong mindset to be making that list in the first place. So for this particular client, to give an example of one of what she called the vitally important things on her list, she said she hadn't sent out her Christmas cards to her clients. It was the first week of December and she hadn't sent out Christmas cards. And that as a PR company, it had to be done the first week of December. To which I smiled and asked, was that really true? And she reflected on the high bar she'd set herself, and she realized it was made up. And actually, as we went through the rest of her list, I saw her visibly start to relax and insightfully see how made up her to-do list was. So likewise, this year, I have been constantly reflecting on what really needs to be done, on what's really important. And you'll have heard me talk about this in one of my other 10-minute recordings on unconscious programming and indoctrination. Like it's so helpful to reflect on even the smallest habits that we do every day. Like, does it really need to be done, or are we just doing it on automatic pilot? And then reflect again on the needs to be done list, because one of the things I always like to say to clients is minimum can always be minimized further. So when do you check in with yourself and revise on what really needs doing? How good are you at being kind to yourself and really figuring out what is important? So I invite you to do the same. And how can you revisit your expectations before reaching burnout? and actually see that it's okay to say enough. It's okay to delay stuff. It's okay to put your being as a priority over doing. So I'd love to hear in the comments, as I always do, how are you guys doing? Are you finding you're struggling at the moment? Are you tired at the moment? I always love to hear back from you. So do comment, like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Again, it really helps me get to know what content resonates with you. And if you want to go a bit deeper, then check out my Patreon channel, where I talk about consciousness and living a life where you thrive. So I cover all sorts of programs on relationships, health, parenting, money. So until next week, have a wonderful week, and I will see you next Monday. Bye for now.